Well, actually, I know the reason. It's mainly a trust thing with the person that you're going to ask. It's if you think that the person is going to get where you were going with a question, then you can ask them in a pretty direct way. But if they're not, then you feel a need to fill in where you're going with the question, but that often has the unintended side benefit or side effect of answering the question ahead of the person. And that's something that I've continually tried to cut down on. I've gotten better at it, but I'm still not perfect. But that's one thing that I've definitely worked on, like really trying to concentrate and just, keep the question short and let that other person answer. Now, of course, there are the times where that person doesn't know where you were going and they don't answer the question that you were asking. And then you do have to kind of elaborate. But I find that that's fine. You can elaborate after the fact just as much. And if they just answered the question that you wanted and you kept it short, then it's just that much cleaner for the audience who's watching. So that's a big one. Also another one with interviewing that I've learned, I actually learned this from taking a class, kind of a seminar thing online that I took about storytelling. Actually, I took it when I was preparing to do that special edition thing I was talking about earlier, as I was kind of getting my head around that, which is knowing when to just let silence hit when you're asking people questions, which is really hard. It goes against like every instinct in your brain. But sometimes if you ask a question and somebody answers it, they have something else to say. And if you give them some breathing room and some time, then it signals to them that they can keep talking and that you're not going to move on to something else. In kind of a more passive way, it's a little more comfortable than saying, tell me more, or, like hedging them forward like that. And I find that oftentimes the thing they say after the break, after you give them a little bit of time, is even more important than the thing they said, as a direct answer. You'll often hear, you ask somebody a question and they'll be like, yeah, I don't, this, that, the other thing. And then there's these reasons and stuff. And then at that point, they kind of sigh and they stop for a minute. And that's where it's tempting to jump in and go, great, okay, here's the next question. But if you just let them, they'll often like sigh and then they'll be like, yeah, when I really think about it, I don't even care about that. Or, and they'll go off on some like more truthful, deeper answer. And all you had to do is just get out of their way and let them do it and be okay with an awkward silence happening. And that's a thing that I've learned again, from an interview perspective. When it comes to the podcast, I've come to really value chemistry with my co-host really highly. I've had a lot of different people come on as like co-host guests or as, shorter term things. And, I definitely have a real sense for who I can get along with and stuff. And one of the things that you deal with on a podcast like this as well is that we're doing this over Skype, right? I don't have Luis sitting next to me or laying on the bed at the hotel room as he so often is.
Not always.
as when we're on the road, but then I can look at you, I can do hand motions, I can hedge to you and you know where we're going. But here, it's only because you and I get along and have always gotten along really that I think that we can keep a pace and keep a back and forth going like this. And I've had that with all of my long-term co-hosts. And that's something that, I think that when I first started podcasting, I wouldn't have said that. I think I would have said something more like, it's more about what that person knows and if they're good at speaking, and explaining their thoughts. And, one of the things I value is that they have something to teach or something to say. And every one of my co-hosts has had that quality. And I think I would have valued those more. But now I think that even if somebody had that, if we just had, soft chemistry or just wasn't quite there, I think that would be, something that I would pay a lot more attention to. So yeah, those are all level ups. The last one is something that I think Luis, you and I do particularly well together, which is try things out and then iterate or give feedback or cut as we see fit. That didn't really work, or that did work, or here's what I like about that. And, we trust each other's opinions to kind of make sure that we can, figure out what's best for the show. But I think that that's the other thing, is that I've definitely gotten a little looser on that. Like I'm much more willing to just try, like just trust your opinion and try something. Or if I have an idea, just throw it out there, because man, you never know. It's so weird how that works when you're throwing things at a large group of people. It's just the thing that you think is crappy, everybody loves, and the thing you think is great, they're like, yeah, that's fine. And it's just trying to predict that, I found, is just not good. And a better idea is just to cast a wide net and kind of, see what sticks. So thanks for the questions, guys. We do appreciate it. We've got a bunch more in the queue as well, which we'll be getting to. Crack a pack time, Luis?
Oh yeah.
This one comes from Ben from Australia. Thank you, Ben. It's nice to meet everybody in Australia. I have to say, Luis, that when it comes to limited resources, Australia loves us. They are so awesome down there. It's hard to come up with another place that I visit that I feel as loved as I do when I go to Australia. They are so fantastic, bringing us Tim Tams and all this stuff. All right. Waxing.
Yeah, I'm sad I missed the GP because I assumed there was a lot more listeners at the Grand Prix than
there were
the Pro
tons.
Tours.
Yeah.
1,500 people instead of 300.
Yeah, exactly. It was great. I got to meet, I did a radio interview. I did a TV show thing. I did a streamer, I actually got to commentate a couple of streamers, Ziggy D. It was really funny. And when I went in, I'm kind of like, I don't really know what these guys want me to do. And you know me, like I like to joke around and stuff. And they're like, all right, so we want you to like tease us. Like you can make fun of us. Or like, we're Australian, we can take it. I'm like, perfect. No problem. And we had fun with it. All right. First card is Waxing Moon.
This is marginal at best. It's not a card I'm really looking to put in my deck.
Agreed. Brazen Wolves. God, I love that card.
Brazen Wolves are very underrated. Essentially a 3-mana 4/3 attacker is just a beater.
It's just a savage beater.
And a 3-mana 2/3 blocker is not like the end of the world, but it's really the attacking part where the money is. And I think Brazen Wolves is just like a tad lower than the best common, the rest red common Galvanic Bombardment. So
yeah, I agree.
Certainly not. I'm not happy to take a first pick Brazen Wolves because, well, taking the second best common in a color first pick is just not a good first pick. The rares are very good in this set, but I don't think that it's a card I'm too unhappy about in the first couple picks.
Well, I'm thrilled to take it first pick.
Well, I guess you're less lucky than I am, but I suppose that's already obvious.
All right, fine. I'm not thrilled. Dragunder.
I do like Dragunder. It's a good card. It's again not a first pick, but this is like the kind of card when you see 6, I think okay, blue might be open.
Yeah,
it's a card that I don't think I've ever cut from my deck.
No, I haven't either, and I love it. This is one of my favorite effects for sure, especially the draw card style. I mean, everybody, I like to bounce creatures, that's fine, but like this one just gives you protection from so many of the like dumb things that your opponent can do to you. And it just seems to slot into the format nicely against all different types of things like enchantments and werewolves and all that kind of stuff. It of the Horrid Swarm.
This is kind of the, I call it the constellation emerge creature because it in both it is a fine card, but it's just worse than all the other emerge guys at common, and certainly worse than all the uncommons except for the one that destroys artifacts and enchantments.
I agree.
I wouldn't take Into the Horrid Swarm over Dragunder or Brazen Wolves, but once you're in the emerge deck, then it's a fine playable.
Yeah, I think it is too. It's tempting to group cards and then assume that the worst one of that group are bad. For example, like the werewolves. Say, well, which is the worst werewolf? And you can pick whichever, maybe it's the Kessig Prowler or whatever. But that card's still sweet, right? It of the Horrid Swarm is the worst of these, and it's still pretty good. It's not quite on that sweet level, I agree with you, but I think it's playable. Borrowed Malevolence is next. That's the black instant that has escalate, and you can give a creature -1/-1 and a creature +1/+1. It's fine.
I thought this card would be better than it is. Turns out the format has slightly larger creatures than I expected, so it's just doesn't interact as well as it would if you were all on all 2-drops.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I do like about it, and that makes it so that I'll usually play my first copy, I think I've always played my first copy, is that there are enough 1 toughness creatures around that you can actually kill a real card with it. And then if not, you could have to engineer like a combat situation, but that happens enough times that the Borrowed Malevolence is good. I do think the second one loses a lot of value though. Thraben Standard Bearer, that's the white 1/1, and then you can pay 1 and a white, tap it and discard a card to make a 1/1 human. Kind of not a fan of this one, to be honest.
The white-red Madness deck is not going to happen.
Right.
It's just trying to make it happen.
Yeah, like it feels like R&D thought it was going to be a thing like Stern Constable into Thraben Standard Bearer, but it just doesn't quite get there. And, so the times when I've said, okay, fine, if that's not the case, I'm going to try out Thraben Standard Bearer in a card that has like Borrowed Grace, a deck that has like Borrowed Grace or 2. And even then, I just find it slow and the cost is pretty high, and I'm kind of just off of the Standard Bearer. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's unplayable. I just don't like it. I'm certainly not picking it this early. That's the kind of card you can get, third to last or whatever.
Also, I just never played the card.
I've played it twice at least.
Has it been good?
It has been. It was medium minus both. Like, I mean, maybe I just call it bad both times. Like, and again, these were in decks that had, Inspiring Captain, that kind of card, and I thought, okay, I can use this, make a bunch of tokens. It'll be, my flood protection or whatever. The real downside to it is that it just does nothing on its own. It's just a 1/1 for 1, which is just so insignificant. And then when you add to the fact that it's slow, like 1 and a white, tap it is expensive. Discarding a card is a real cost. Yeah. Poor Thraben Standardbearer, he just loses out. Cathar's Shield is next, another card I haven't played. The 0 mana equipment, creature gets +0/+3, and it costs a full 3 to equip. It also gets Vigilance.
So this is one of those free cards, not just because it costs.
Yeah, it's free.
0.
You just play it just like an Ornithopter.
Because if you want a Cathar's Shield, you'll likely get one. You're not going to have to use a pick on it. I don't think this card is particularly good, but some of the people on my team had good experiences with it. So this is the kind of card. See, there's actually an interesting class of cards here. So we're both about 30 drafts in, maybe a few less.
Yeah, I think I'm at low 20s. I think I did about 5. I'm probably at about 22, 23, somewhere in that range.
Right. So we're certainly getting into the format and have played with almost all the cards at this point. But Cathar's Shield, once I get back home and I'm just really jamming on Magic Online, Cathar's Shield is the kind of card I discover whether I like it or not. Because that'll just happen kind of naturally. Like eventually I'll just have a deck where I just maybe I'll try this card.
Okay.
And that hasn't happened yet, but I do think the card could be playable in some decks.
Okay. Well, I think it's really bad. I do.
Yeah,
I think it's I mean, I don't think I need to. Now, I'm not saying that my opinion's bulletproof here. If people start beating me with Cathar's Shield, or I start to see a certain deck or archetype that really can take advantage, I could be swayed. But this is exactly where I don't want to spend a card. You know what I mean? Like the card in my hand, I just never want it to be this. Really bad. Ugh. Exultant Cultist. I like that one.
I do like Exultant Cultist a lot. This is exactly why I was, both of us really are so in love with the Emerge deck last week.
Yeah.
Is that I would put an Exultant Cultist in all my blue decks even if I had no Emerge cards. It's a 3-mana 2/2 that draws you a card when it dies. That's just a great card.
Yeah.
And then it just works perfectly with Emerge.
Yeah. It's just all upside for minimal downside. It does have a little, 2/2 for 3 mana is not really where you want to be, but yeah, good card. This is a good one to think about or talk about here. I saw a lot of people playing in this at the PT, and I find it a little more mediocre. It's Stensia Innkeeper. That's the 3 and a red 3/3 vampire. When it enters the battlefield, you can tap a land an opponent controls, and it doesn't untap on that person's next untap step.
Man, I got worked by this card actually against Yuya when he played it.
Yeah.
Had locked down one of my fourth land, and I just didn't draw land on my turn, and I just had to pass the turn doing nothing.
Ugh.
That being said, the card is just fine.
That was the best case scenario.
Yeah, the best case scenario is you keep them off a whole turn's worth of plays, which isn't going to happen all that often, but it is a playable card. Kind of wanted to talk about similar card later in the show here, but suffice to say, 4 mana 3/3 is only slightly below the bar if it has no text, and
Agreed.
this is real text.
It is. Yeah, I agree. I think the bigger question when it comes to Stensia Innkeeper is how many 4-drops do you have? If you need one, or if you're really looking to kind of fill out your curve or need an extra creature, I think you can run a Stensia Innkeeper and be fine with it. But you're also not looking to put this in your deck, right? You're not like, oh, I got to make room for the Stensia Innkeeper. If you have a few other 4s and they're already good, this one probably ends up on the sideline. All right, here's a card I wanted to ask you about because I still have yet to play with this. It's an uncommon as we move into our uncommons. It's Fury Blade Vampire. The 1 and a red 1/2 with trample, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, you can discard a card and give it +3/+0 until end of turn. I have played against it multiple times, so I have some experience with it, but I still haven't found a deck for myself that I was like, oh, this is, I'm going to madness stuff out, or I'm going to do that. I just haven't really been there. The red decks I've drafted have been more of like, the blue-red tempo and the blue-red spells type decks, where this one doesn't seem to be quite as good. Have you had experience with it?
I've seen it played in a bunch of decks. I haven't actually played with it myself.
Okay. I don't think it's great, but
it's good in the aggressive red-black vampires deck.
Yeah.
It's good if you have madness cards. Basically, if you have 0 madness cards in your deck, this card's not very good because you're gonna end up kind of 2-for-1ing yourself to get a couple damage through a lot of the time. Because this, even when you discard a card, just trades for 2s and 3s. It doesn't go over the top of them. It's only got 2 toughness. So what you really need to be doing is discarding, an Alchemist Greeting, clear their blocker, take 4, or even discarding like a Weirding Vampire and just trading your 2-drop for their 2-drop. They take 2 damage, and you got a discount on your Madness card, and that's a fine deal. So I'm not super in love with this card. I think I would rather just start with Brazen Wolves over this.
Agreed. Which is part of the reason why I haven't played it. Insatiable Gorgers is now. Wow, we've got a lot of red cards here. This is 2 red for a 5/3 Vampire Berserker that attacks each combat if able. And it does have Madness. The Madness is 3 in a red.
Yeah, it's not a card I've loved. It's funny because it looks so much like Incorrigible Youths, but it's actually just way, way worse. So
I mean, and let's just put it on the bar. Is it better than Brazen Wolves?
I don't think so. I would start. I would rather start with Brazen Wolves.
I would too.
A 5/3 and a 4/3 aren't that different, and this has a drawback in the Madness part. You're not getting a discount. You're just getting a color fixing a little bit.
Yeah, it feels like it should have haste, right? It's a Berserker. It's red.
Yeah, maybe that's what's tripping me up. Because I always look at it and I think this card. It's also uncommon, and I get a little tricked by the rarity symbol. I'm like, oh, this is uncommon. This is probably pretty good, and it just turns out it's just like
it's medium.
Not a great card.
Yeah, it's just not a great card. This next one's good, but in a color pair I still have yet to have a lot of success with. It's Ride Down. So red-white for an instant destroy target blocking creatures that were blocked by that creature. This combat game trample. It's a good card.
Ride Down's a fine card.
Yeah.
I would
never taken it here though.
No. If you were red-white, you would take it over Brazen Wolves, but it's so close that you should just take Brazen Wolves to start with. And honestly, even if you're red-white, there are some decks that need the 3-drop more anyway. So
yeah.
It's really not close to Brazen Wolves here. So as much as Ride Down is a fine card, it's nothing you should be too excited about.
No, I find that like it's a reward that you get for being in red-white, but you get it after you're in red-white. So like pack 2, the Ride Downs that get opened, you're probably going to end up in your hands, and you take them. Yeah, sure. I mean, it's going to go in every red-white deck. All right, we've got another uncommon before we get to our rare. It is Tangleclaw Werewolf. That's 2 green for a 2/4 that can block an additional creature each combat, and for 6 and a green, you can transform it into a 4/6 with vigilance that must be blocked if able, and can block an additional creature as well. Fibrous Entangler.
This is good. It's funny. None of the werewolves in the set are bad.
Nope.
First of all,
nope.
And this one is one of the like decent ones.
It's on the lower half. Yeah, it's still very good, but it's definitely not one of the top tier.
Well, it's worse than all the common ones.
Yeah, it is.
I'd rather have Captive or Outcasts for sure. So.
Agreed. I mean, this might be the worst. It's funny to say, but it might be the worst of them.
This might actually just be the worst werewolf. But
as we described earlier, it's still great.
It's not even the best wolf in the pack. Brazen Wolves is better.
Yeah, that's true. But I still like it, right? Like the thing is, every green deck I'm playing this no matter what. I'm playing this card.
Yes, the power of the werewolves is that they're just mana sinks. 4 mana, 2/4 can block 2 creatures. You wouldn't play that in all decks. You'd play that in some. But given the opportunity to pay 7 mana and just flip into something gigantic, then you'd always put this in card in your deck.
Yeah, and this card is a major pain for your opponent too. Like it must be blocked. If you can get their creature out of the way so they don't have a good double block, it starts just gobbling up their creatures every turn. It also, if they only have one big blocker or whatever, you can attack with this and everything else and get in a bunch of damage potentially. And then the thing that I like about the design on the card, I find this elegant, is that the fact that it is such a good blocker as a 2/4, which is already a good blocker, and then it can even block an additional creatures if they have like a bunch of small ones, lends itself to getting to that point where you actually build up to 7 mana and can transform it. And I think that's pretty cool. Like, it sort of has its own built-in game plan. Our rare, it's Harmless Offering.
Well, this card is appropriately harmless.
Harmless indeed.
Cannot envision a circumstance where I would play this card.
No. It's the 2 and a red sorcery. Target opponent gains control of target permanent you control. You get to give somebody something. We're not doing that. So kind of a junky rare. So I've got Brazen Wolves Drag Under Tangleclaw Werewolf pulled aside. There's also the Insatiable Gorgers, the Fury Blade Vampire, the Ride Down, the Exultant Cultist. But I have it down to these 3. And for me, I do think it comes down to Brazen Wolves or Tangleclaw Werewolf. Maybe Drag Under's in that discussion as well. But I think I actually would just take the Brazen Wolves. As much as I joked about it at the beginning of the pack, I think it's just like the most solid choice here.
Definitely. I'm in for Brazen Wolves here.
All right, so that will go. And by the way, for people that are new to the show, hello, welcome. I give away all these rares. So I've got a little pile here that I make with all of our Crack-A-Pack rares, and they go out to one of our patrons. So all you have to do is sign up on the Patreon for any level, and you will automatically be eligible for that. Which brings us to our next Crack-A-Pack, Luis.
Oh yeah.
This is a cool one. So this one is from Daniel, Doug, and Tim of the Team Weatherlight. They made sure that they...
Karn, the fourth member.
So this is not Eldritch Moon. We're going back. We're going back, buddy. We're grab bagging it up today.
All right.
This is Tempest.
Ooh, I've actually drafted a fair amount of Tempest.
All right. Can we? Is there anything sweet that we can open up for the listeners here?
Oh, and that like Wasteland, I think is just going to be the winner.
That's the best one, right?
It's an uncommon too.
The last time I drafted Tempest, I opened a Wasteland.
Oh, what's it like being so lucky?
You were sitting right there. I drafted it with you.
Oh, really? That was the last time you drafted it?
Yep.
All right, there we go.
I kept that Wasteland too, by the way.
Yeah, of course you did.
All right. I'm trying to open this pack, but they taped on their Team Weatherlight logo, so I can't get to the back. All right, we did it. All right.
I think they should have given you a pack of Weatherlight to open, though.
Yeah, it did kind of feel like that.
The team.
All right, the first card is called Cindermarsh. It's named after me. Here, you know these cards? Oh my god.
Yeah, let's see if I can get all the cards.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, let's do this. All right.
All right. Cindermarsh taps for a red or a black and doesn't untap for a turn or taps for a colorless.
Exactly. Yeah. Mana Fixing in Tempest, not a thing, right?
This isn't a particularly great land to begin with, since if you use it, you're down a land next turn. And yeah, I mean, they're just 3-color decks weren't a thing either. So there's not that many opportunities to play this card.
All right. So there's going to be 15 cards in this pack, right?
Yeah.
How many do you think you're going to get right? And I don't mean like literally to the word, but just that you knew what the card was.
Right. This is interesting. Let's set the line at 13.5.
Okay, 13.5. God,
so
yeah.
You have to take.
I know how good you are at this stuff.
You have to take the over/under.
I know. I'm trying to decide because I know like that's a fair line. You have an incredibly, but this is like a random pack. Like these aren't like the good cards from Tempest. These are just cards from Tempest. God, I don't want to root against you, man. I'm gonna take the over. I have faith in you. I don't care. Listeners at home, you guys can lock in your vote now. He's already got one down.
One down.
All right. Here's a hard one. Well, let's just say I wouldn't have known what this does. Light of Day.
So it's 3 and a white enchantment. Black creatures can't attack or block.
Jesus, he just snapped that off.
This is first of all, you're doing the uncommons first.
Those are uncommons.
Yeah.
I'm doing just in order that I opened it.
Yeah, those are uncommons. They didn't have colored symbols. So I actually do the birds too. So, but
well, should I just keep going or I don't know what's what.
This is a disaster.
Yeah, I guess these first 3 are uncommons and then the next ones are rare. Is that what I should assume? I'll put the other 2 at the back then.
Okay, yeah. Light of Day. This is back in the day when color hosers meant something.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, you do not want to play against Light of Day with a black deck, and as a result, you can actually take color hosers super high because they're just like, you know how we say sideboard cards are, F in your main deck, but like they're like a B or an A in your main in your after sideboard. These sideboard cards are A pluses post board.
Yeah,
you're talking about cards like Choke, the enchantment that makes islands not untap.
Yeah, and this is insane.
This kills all their black creatures forever.
It literally pacifies every black creature they have and that they will have.
Yeah, so it's actually a very reasonable early pick, even if you only get to play it in 1 to 2 of your matches.
Because it's just an outright game winner.
It's just like the value above replacement on this card is just through the roof.
I am so glad they went away from cards like this. What a dumb card.
Oh, yeah.
Especially, it's hilarious that it's against black, which has no way to remove enchantments. That's the funny it's just like, haha. All right, this next card. Oh, it's a good one. Rampant Growth.
Yeah, this is sorcery, 1 and green. I bet most listeners even know what this is.
Yeah, for sure.
Search your library for a land, put into play tapped, a basic land.
God, I've always hated the artwork on this one. It's got that weird clam thing or whatever.
Oh, no, the cow is the Mirage one. This is the big,
gross.
In any case, Rampant Growth is fine. It's a playable card. In a 2-color deck, you'll play Rampant Growth. It's a little less appealing than it would be in a 3-color format. You could splash, but it just didn't happen very often. And Tempest is a pretty fast format, so having low drops is probably better than Rampant Growthing into 5 drops.
Right, yeah. Oh, I already know this one's good. This is Lightning Blast.
Yeah, this is 3 and a red instant, deal 4 to target creature or player. Lightning Blast, very solid first pick. You would not be unhappy about first picking a Lightning Blast.
Would you loot it away?
Yes, I would loot if I had one in my hand. Sure. If in Tempest and older sets in particular, you take commons way more often. Like, you're happy about taking commons a lot more than in current level sets.
Why is that?
Just there were fewer great rares, and some of the commons were absurd.
Yeah, like that. I mean, that card's great.
Yeah, which I think makes sense, and that's not even one of the best commons. I mean, it's one of the better commons. Sorry, it's not like this is the set that has Rolling Thunder at common.
Yeah,
that's red right. X, deal X divided any way you choose.
Oh, I forgot about that.
That would be like a rare or mythic rare if it was in like this normal these draft formats. But I think it's good. I mean, I think commons shouldn't be just windmill slams over good rares, and it just so happened that that's how these sets ended up.
Lowland Giant.
The Summit Prowler of Tempest, 2 red for a 4/3. A solid card, basically strictly worse than Lightning Blast because it's harder to cast and not as good, but still a card you basically always play.
Circle of Protection, white.
Speaking of those color hosers, so the circles are all 1 and a white enchantment, and you pay a colorless to prevent all damage from a card of that source to you. Mm-hmm. Heinously unfun to play against.
Is it to you? I am curious how they template, because this actually just says 1, prevent all damage. Sorry, to you. Never mind, I didn't read it right. Yeah. So it just like blanks the ability of all those creatures to attack.
Yeah, but not only that, like they have to attack you to force you to spend your mana, and you're just like sitting there using your circle every turn. That's not the best. Circle Protection white also not the best because white can, as you pointed out earlier, destroy enchantments. So I'm still on the Lightning Blast train.
Metallic Silver, Sliver, excuse me.
So Slivers was this is a theme in Tempest. It's actually the first time they showed up, and Metallic Sliver is just a 1-mana 1/1, but it's a sliver. So if you have a bunch of other slivers, it kind of gets bigger. You didn't really want to take this one either. I've actually had decks where I'd play it because Muscle Sliver was a common that gives all slivers +1/+1.
Yeah, there you go. But you can pick these up later. Also interesting to note for Magic geeks, this is before creatures had subtypes. So it's just an artifact creature, and it actually has in the rules part, it says Metallic Sliver counts as a sliver. Which is a funny reminder. Diabolic Edict. There's no way you know what that does.
So, this looks a lot better than it is, and we actually kind of say that whenever we come up with this effect. This is actually where these...
Actually, yeah. Edict. We did it.
Diabolic Edict's 1 and a black instant. Target player sacrifices a creature.
How funny is that? We use that. We always say Edict effect, and we actually just opened actual Edict.
Right, and this card is mediocre because it just always kills your opponent's worst creature, and in Limited, they have 3 creatures out. Their worst one's not great. It was pretty revolutionary when it first came out, though. It was like one of the first non-targeted removal spells, so it was a very, very interesting and cool new Magic card. And now, it's a good effect. It keeps getting reprinted for a reason.
Were you playing? I mean, this is 97. This is before you were like seriously playing, right?
Yes, my experience from Tempest comes from doing Tempest drafts on Magic Online.
Okay, yeah, I actually, it's funny. I actually was playing when this set was out, or shortly after, like when these cards were around. I remember having a lot of these cards just in my collection. I had metallic slivers all over the place. I remember that. Bayou Dragonfly. You remember what that guy does?
So this is 1 and a green. I know that much.
Yes.
And this is tough. It's got flying. I think it's a 0/1 flying that gives them a poison when it hits them.
No, not that one. This is the stupidest card. It's actually like a huge compliment that you didn't remember this because it's so terrible.
All right, this is the one I get, though. I only get to get one.
Yeah, it is. So Bayou Dragonfly, 1 and a green for a 1/1 flying swamp walk.
Okay. Right.
It's like a pure top-down flavor design here. It's
yeah, it is. I mean,
even though like two abilities is not.
Well, Swamp Walk and Flying aren't the most complimentary abilities.
Right.
And yes, I've never played a Bayou Dragonfly. I would not recommend it. See, even if they have swamps, 1 damage unblockable turn, not the biggest.
No. Oh, God. Are we going to get you?
Oh, we'll see. We'll see.
1 down. All right, next is Sky Shroud Ranger.
It says green for a 1/1, and you can tap to put a land into play.
Yeah, as a sorcery. What is this card good?
It is not. Basically, you're spending a card on this, which 1 mana 1/1's not really a card, and in exchange, you're getting to ramp your mana only if you have the right supply of lands. Like imagine drawing this in a 2-land hand. So it's just a very bad card. This kind of card, because it got reprinted in Champions as like I don't remember, like something Tribe Scout. Mm-hmm. Had a brief moment in the sun with the Ravnica bounce lands, but those didn't exist back then. So yeah, I would not Sky Shroud Ranger. I would definitely Lightning Blast here.
Spinal Graft.
This card's kind of interesting. 1 and a black enchantment or aura. Enchanted creature gets +3/+3, but if it becomes targeted, it dies. You have to sacrifice it. And you can kind of there was a Spinal Graph beatdown deck, if I do remember. You put on your Shadow creature. Shadow is an ability that says you can only be blocked by creatures with Shadow, and only block creatures with Shadow. So it was another form of evasion that was all over the place in Tempest. So
if you could sneak a Spinal Graph on and they weren't hitting your creature, then you could just wreck
you
them
just
really
go
quick.
to town. But it obviously had a lot of drawbacks, and this is back when you had a lot of like creatures that had activators that could target things. So
yeah, and specifically pingers as well, right? Wasn't there a lot of them?
Yeah, there was a common pinger in both red and blue.
Blue one as well. Yeah, the root. I remember that guy. Yeah,
it's Rootwater Hunter and Fire Slinger, which are both really annoying to deal with.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of Shadow, Soltari Trooper.
This is 1 and a white for a 1/1 Shadow, and then when it attacks, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn.
This card's so good.
A fun card.
Beater. Yeah, just
2 mana, 2/2 unblockable mostly, and that's good enough.
Yep.
This was an aggressive format. I would still Lightning Blast. Lightning Blast is a pretty high bar.
All right. A few more cards. I'm really curious to see if you get these ones. All right, this next one's called Crown of Flames.
So this is 1 red for another aura, and enchanted creature, you can pay a red to give it +1/+0, or you can pay a red to return Crown of Flames to your hand.
How do you do that, man? I've seen this card 100 times, and I didn't remember what it was called or what it did.
Well, it's not because I played it, because this card is very bad. So
yeah, it's really bad.
You should not put this card in your deck. It's an aura that you have to sink a bunch of mana into, doesn't give you toughness, and then the upside is you can buy it back, which is not great.
Okay, so this next card, I don't remember it, but I can tell you that our rare, you're going to know what it does.
All right.
And so this is the one.
Uncommon's the hardest, by the way.
Yeah, definitely the hardest. And this card's weird. So if it's really good, I think you'll know. And if it sucks, I think you're going to have a hard time. So it's called Flickering Ward.
Oh, okay. This card was good.
Okay, then you know it.
I played this card in a very bad constructed deck a long time ago.
Oh, no.
It's a 1 white enchanted creature as a protection from any color, and then you can pay a white to return Flickering Ward.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so this card is good.
This is similar to Crown of Flames, except for good.
Right, because you play against an opponent who's like playing red-green. You put this on your creature, give pro-green because they have 2 big green creatures in play. And then if they kill your creature, if they kill it in response, you're out of luck. So you try not to do that. But if they try to kill your creature while it's in play, you can just pay a white, get back your Flickering Ward. You can also replay it if the color that you want changes, or you can like attack with the creature, bounce forward, put it on a blocker. Like it does a lot of things. So yeah, definitely a strong card.
All right. I think you'll know this one. It's called Pearl Medallion.
Pearl Medallion is a cycle of medallions.
Yep.
They all cost 2 colorless mana, and they reduce the spells of their color by 1. In this case, white. So
you did it! I knew you could do it, man. I took the over, and you got there. How many of you at home took the over, and how many took the under? I'm really curious. I still can't believe it, though. Like, I knew you were the favorite, but it didn't mean that you were a lock. And like, unbelievable, man. How do you do that? Anyway, whatever. We're taking lightning. Why do I know what
Crown of Flames does? Serious question.
Like honestly, I've
never played the card. It's so bad.
You may need to reevaluate your life decisions this far. The fact that you know that card is just creepy.
It's not utilizing my memory in an effective manner.
No, thankfully you have extra memory to spare, it seems.
In the other case, I would take Lightning Blast out of this pack, and the card is great.
Yeah. All right, that was fun. Thanks again
not
to
your normal
Team
LR
Weatherlight.
fare, but hey, you know.
No, but it was fun, and I thought we would. I've had this pack. I've got a few more, to be honest, of older sets and stuff. In fact, I actually have another Tempest one from those guys, and they gave us 2 Tempests and a original Modern Masters. So, yeah, we'll work through those another time. I just thought, grab bag, have some fun. We crack that. All right, let's get into a few cards here, before we wind things down for the show. Luis and I have been talking a lot throughout the week, and just as we always do, about the format and stuff like that. So we thought we'd hit up on a few cards that we're noticing, as we're drafting on Magic Online and such, and maybe a little underrated, a little overrated, maybe something interesting to say about them. Where do you want to start, Luis?
I think we could just kind of go through this list that we made,
okay,
because we're still trying to get a handle on what the format kind of feels like and means overall. We're certainly going to have more deep dives into what the different decks are in the format. I do want to point out that Blue Green Emerge did quite well at the Pro Tour overall. Of the people we drafted, our team did quite well with that. And,
I see. It was also hotly contested, man.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It was interesting. It was not a foregone conclusion by any stretch. And I am actually not claiming victory either, because we're going to kind of see how we feel in a couple weeks, and I think that'll be a true test. But at that moment, we were both pretty high on the deck, and I think the deck performed. So
yeah, and I do think that's a common. You'll see this cycle with these draft formats, right? Where you and I had done enough drafts to start to explore some of the archetypes, and two of the headliners, were the blue-red and the blue-green decks. And as you go through the blue-green decks, well, it's natural to explore the cards that have the word emerge on them, either the actual emerge cards or cards like Foul Emissary that say, well, if you emerge this, something happens. And you're like, well, hey, I'll go all in and just see what happens, right? People weren't taking those cards early, and you and I separately and then together were like, okay, yeah, this is real. Like this deck's very powerful. And, a day before the Pro Tour, that's incredibly valuable information, because that means that we've kind of vetted that and know some of the cards that don't look that good, and they end up being that good. But as the format develops, now that we're sort of in the aftermath and that things are more known, we've done a couple of podcasts, and certain truths are starting to pop up. It could very easily be that type of deck slinks down a bit, because now we're not the only person in it. And if there's two people, it might not support two people at a table. Maybe you need all those pieces to make that deck great. Or maybe people realize something else, like, hey, these emerge creatures are just good. I'm just going to play them, right? Where you're not segregating them out into, okay, well, this is for the emerge deck and this is for a regular blue deck. Now you're just like, give me those Wretched Gryphs. I don't care if I'm emerging or, not, or if I'm hard casting it, or if I'm just going to sacrifice some random creature to it that's not a Foul Emissary. These type of things happen all the time, and then that can absolutely change. So, as we move forward, we'll be keeping tabs on it and keeping an eye on it. But the other thing that'll pop up, and some of the stuff we're going to talk about from here, are the subtleties, right? That there's little things that we're learning. There's little cards that are being nudged up and down on our pick orders and our thought scale, and our scales in our head, about, well, this one's actually a little better than we thought, or, oh, did you know that if you do this with this card, and and there's all these little things that jump up, and we're going to be hitting up on some of that here too. So first one is Ironclad Slayer.
So Ironclad Slayer is interesting because it's actually a pretty pushed rate on this effect. Like, we've seen this before for 3-mana 2/2, and Ironclad Slayer is, first of all, not only a 3/2, but it also actually returns aura or equipment, whereas the Auramancer only got auras back. So this is priced to move in there are decks where this is a premium card. If you have Boon of Emrakul in specific, it's very good. It's even good with cards like Choking Restraints has the natural combo, right? Eventually you pay 5 mana to Choking Restraints.
Yep.
And then you also have things like you put a Spontaneous Mutation or a Choking Restraints in their creature and they just sack it to emerge. That's the drawback of those cards.
Yep.
Ironclad Slayer kind of gets you out of that.
Yeah, for sure. So, and you've even got Bonds of Faith, which is a card that's already kind of high risk, high reward, but having a card like Ironclad Slayer, if they do kill your creature, can help you recoup some of that.
Yeah, I mean, Faith Unbroken's already great, but this makes
sorry, did I say Bonds of Faith? Yeah, Faith Unbroken.
You did, but I was trying to